My best friend told my boss about my medical condition, resulting in me being passed over for a promotion. And now I'm losing my health insurance. I, 32F, never thought I'd be writing something like this. It still feels surreal, like I'm living in some bizarre nightmare that I can't wake up from. But here we are. For context, I've been working at the same marketing firm for almost 6 years now. When I started, I was just a junior copywriter with big dreams and a mountain of student debt. The company had decent benefits, especially health insurance, which was crucial for me because I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, MS, 3 years ago. For those who aren't familiar with MS, it's an autoimmune disease where your immune system attacks the protective covering of your nerves. Symptoms vary widely, but in my case, I experience occasional fatigue, muscle weakness, and some balance issues during flare-ups. With medication and proper management, I've been able to live a mostly normal life. I've never missed a deadline, and my performance reviews have consistently been excellent. I told exactly 3 people about my condition: my parents, my sister, and my best friend Megan, 33F. Megan and I have been friends since college. We were roommates for 3 years, bridesmaids at each other's weddings, though I'm divorced now, and she was the first person I called when I got my diagnosis. She held my hand during doctor appointments and helped me research treatment options. We've shared everything with each other, or at least I thought we did. About 8 months ago, our creative director announced his retirement, and it became clear that either myself or Jake, 35M, another senior copywriter, would be promoted to fill the position. Jake's good at what he does, but I've consistently brought in more clients and have a better track record with campaign successes. Everyone in the office, including our CEO Sarah, 47F, seemed to hint that I was the front runner for the promotion. This is where things started to unravel. 2 months ago, I noticed Megan and Jake having lunch together frequently. I didn't think much of it initially. Megan works in HR, and I figured they were just friends, or maybe working on some project together. Megan never mentioned anything unusual, and I didn't pry. Last month, Sarah called me into her office for what I thought would be the promotion announcement. Instead, she awkwardly informed me that they had decided to go with Jake for the creative director position. When I asked why, considering my performance metrics were better, she gave me a vague response about long-term reliability and being able to handle the stress of the position. I was confused and hurt, but I tried to be professional about it. I congratulated Jake and decided to focus on my work. That is, until last week, when everything fell apart. Our company announced a restructuring. The marketing department was being downsized, and several positions were being eliminated, including mine. Jake, as the new creative director, had apparently recommended which positions could be cut, and somehow my name ended up on that list. I was being laid off, effective at the end of the month. With the layoff, I would lose my health insurance, which covers my extremely expensive MS medications, over $5,000 per month without insurance. I was devastated. When I got home that night, I called Megan, sobbing. I expected sympathy, maybe even some insider information since she works in HR. What I got was unexpected defensiveness. "Well, you can't expect the company to keep you on if they're concerned about reliability," she blurted out. I was stunned. "What do you mean, reliability? I've never missed a deadline in 6 years." There was a long pause. "Because of your health situation." My blood ran cold. "Megan, how would the company know about my condition? I never told anyone at work." Another long pause. "I might have mentioned it to Jake when we started seeing each other. Seeing each other? Jake?" The pieces started falling into place. Megan had been dating Jake for months, and she had told him about my MS information I had shared with her in strict confidence. When I confronted her about the betrayal, she seemed genuinely confused by my reaction. I didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, Jake and I were talking about work stuff, and he mentioned being stressed about the potential promotion. He was worried about the department's future, and I was trying to be helpful. I mentioned that you sometimes have health challenges that might make the higher stress position difficult for you. I was speechless. My best friend of over a decade had not only violated my privacy and potentially broken employment laws, but she had actively undermined my career to benefit her new boyfriend. "Do you realize what you've done?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Not only did I lose the promotion, but now I'm losing my job and my health insurance. Do you know what MS medications cost without insurance?" "I'm sure you'll figure something out," she replied dismissively. "Maybe this is for the best. You've been working too hard anyway, and stress makes your condition worse, right?" I hung up on her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was someone who had held my hair back when I threw up after my first MS treatment. Someone who knew exactly how important my career and healthcare were to me. The aftermath has been a nightmare. I've consulted with an employment lawyer who believes I have a solid case for discrimination and wrongful termination, but legal battles take time and money, two things I'm quickly running out of. Meanwhile, I have less than 30 days to figure out how to afford my medications before my insurance runs out. I quote V applied for emergency Medicaid and reached out to patient assistance programs, but there's a gap in coverage that I'm terrified about. Missing even a month of medication could result in a severe relapse that might leave me with permanent damage. To make matters worse, Jake is now parading around the office like a king. A former colleague told me he completely redesigned the department within days of his promotion, moving people's desks around and implementing new efficiency protocols that basically mean everyone has to work longer hours. He's also taken credit for a campaign I developed before my termination, the one that just landed our biggest client of the year. As for Megan, she's completely ghosted me since our confrontation. Our mutual friends tell me she's claiming I'm overreacting and that she was just looking out for the company's interests. They say she and Jake have been together for at least 6 months, not the few weeks I initially thought. Apparently they'd been hiding their relationship from everyone, not just me. What hurts the most is that some of our mutual friends seem to be buying her version of events. "Well, managing a department is really stressful," one friend said when I told her what happened. "Maybe Megan was just concerned about your health." Are you kidding me? I wasn't asking Megan to be concerned about my health. I was asking her to keep my private medical information private. Yesterday, I ran into my neighbor who works in a different department at the company. He mentioned that Jake has been telling people I was let go due to attendance issues and unreliability. When I pressed further, he admitted that there are rumors going around that I have a substance abuse problem that made me an unreliable employee. A substance abuse problem. The only substances I abuse are my prescribed MS medications that keep me functioning. I broke down right there in the hallway of my apartment building. Not only did they ruin my career and put my health at risk, but now they're destroying my reputation too. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm applying for jobs frantically, but with the current economic climate and now this potential smear on my reputation, I'm terrified about my prospects. I've had to cancel my upcoming MRI because I can't afford the copay, even though my neurologist is concerned about new symptoms I've been experiencing. My parents have offered to help financially, but they're retired and on a fixed income. They can't afford my medication costs for more than a month or two. My sister lives across the country with 3 kids and has her own financial struggles. The most bitter pill to swallow is that I worked my ass off for this company. I stayed late, came in on weekends, skipped vacations, all to prove that my MS didn't affect my work performance. I never asked for special treatment or accommodations. I just wanted to be judged on my merits. Instead, I was betrayed by my best friend, discriminated against because of a medical condition, and now I'm facing both financial ruin and potential health crisis. I feel so alone, betrayed, and scared. I never thought my life could fall apart so quickly, and all because someone I loved and trusted decided that my private medical information was hers to share. Update 3 days later. First, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support. Your comments and messages have been a lifeline during what has been the darkest week of my life. A lot has happened since my original post, so I wanted to share some updates. 1. My lawyer has confirmed that we have a solid case for disability discrimination. We've filed a complaint with the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and are preparing for potential litigation. He's working on contingency, so I don't have to worry about legal fees up front, but he warned me that these cases can take months or even years to resolve. 2. Health insurance. A case manager from the MS Society reached out after seeing my post. Someone shared it in their support group and has been helping me navigate emergency coverage options. I've been approved for a patient assistance program that will cover my medications temporarily while my Medicaid application is processed. The catch: I still have to pay $780 out of pocket each month for the patient assistance portion, which is better than $5,000 but still more than my rent. 3. I've had several job interviews, all of which seemed to go well until they contacted my references. I suspect my former company isn't providing the neutral reference they promised. One interviewer actually asked me point blank if I had reliability issues or any health conditions that might interfere with work. When I told my lawyer about this, he said it would strengthen our case, but doesn't help me find a job any faster. 4. This is where things get even more twisted. One of my former colleagues, I'll call her Rachel, reached out to me yesterday. Apparently, Megan has been bad-mouthing me around the office for months. She told people I was unreliable and always making excuses due to my condition, which she heavily implied was substance abuse, not MS. Rachel revealed something that made me physically ill. Jake apparently wasn't even the company's first choice for creative director. Sarah, our CEO, had initially approved my promotion, but during a leadership meeting where they were finalizing decisions, someone raised concerns about my health and suggested I might not be able to handle the position long term. That someone was Megan, who attended the meeting in her HR capacity. Jake was only considered after I was deemed a potential liability. But here's what really got me. Rachel showed me screenshots of texts between her and another colleague where they discussed seeing Megan and Jake together at a restaurant 6 months before my promotion was denied. That means they were already dating when the promotion discussion started. Megan didn't just casually mention my MS to her new boyfriend. She deliberately used private medical information to sabotage my career advancement and benefit her partner. 5. I mentioned in my original post that Megan had ghosted me. Well, that changed last night when she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was clearly expecting me to be alone, but fortunately, my sister had flown in to help me pack. I can't afford my rent without income, so I'm moving next week. Megan acted shocked to see my sister and immediately tried to play the victim. She claimed she was worried about me spiraling and came to check on me. When I asked her about the rumors she'd been spreading, she denied everything and said people at work must have misunderstood what she said about my condition. My sister, who is significantly less diplomatic than I am, asked her point blank why she would tell Jake about my MS when she knew it was private. Megan's response was frustrating. I was worried about you. You know how stressful that position would be. You look fine most of the time, but remember how tired you were after that big pitch last year. I was just concerned. I asked her to leave. As she was walking out, she said something about how she thought she was helping both me and the company make the right decision. My sister practically had to restrain herself from telling Megan exactly what she thought of that logic. 6. I've started selling things from my apartment to cover next month's expenses. My designer handbag collection, my one splurge from years of hard work, is now listed on various resale sites. I'm moving in with my parents temporarily, even though they live in a different state, which means finding a new neurologist and starting over with my treatment plan. The good news is that their state has better Medicaid coverage for autoimmune conditions. The bad news is that I'll be 32 and living in my childhood bedroom. To make matters even more stressful, I received a letter from my apartment complex today. Apparently someone, I wonder who, reported me to management for suspicious activity in my unit. They're demanding an inspection, citing concerns about illegal substances. This is absurd. The only medications in my apartment are my prescribed MS treatments. But now I have to deal with this humiliation on top of everything else. Yup date, 2 weeks later. The response to my last update was overwhelming. I never expected so many people to care about my situation, and I'm genuinely moved by all the support. Here, quote S, what's happened in the past 2 weeks. 1. After my EEOC complaint was filed, the company's legal team contacted my lawyer. They didn't exactly admit wrongdoing, but they seemed concerned enough to discuss a potential settlement. From what I gather through Rachel, there's been some internal discussions about how the restructuring decisions were made, though they're keeping it pretty quiet. The CEO apparently wasn't aware of my MS, or that my medical information had been shared inappropriately. She's not furious exactly, but I hear she's concerned about potential liability and has asked HR to review their confidentiality policies. Meanwhile, I discovered something that made my blood boil. Remember that campaign I mentioned that Jake took credit for? It just won an industry award, and Jake was featured in a trade publication talking about his creative vision. There was no mention of me or my contributions, despite the fact that I developed the entire concept and wrote most of the copy before I was let go. 2. From what I hear, Megan has been questioned about the situation. She's still working, though apparently she's been moved to a different department temporarily. Jake is still the creative director. Rachel says Megan looked pretty stressed during a meeting with HR, but claims she was just trying to look out for everyone. I don't know exactly what's happening with them internally, but the company doesn't seem to be taking dramatic action against them. The most infuriating part. Jake just received a performance bonus for the first quarter, a bonus that would have been mine if I'd gotten the promotion. He and Megan went on a weekend trip to Cabo to celebrate. I know this because Megan posted photos all over social media with captions like, "Living our best life," and "Hard work pays off." The audacity is breathtaking. 3. I've moved in with my parents, which is both a blessing and a challenge. They're supportive, but their house isn't exactly accessible for someone with MS. Their bathroom is upstairs, which is difficult for me during flare-ups. I've been sleeping on a pull-out couch in their living room because I can't reliably navigate the stairs every day. My medication situation is still precarious. The patient assistance program covers most of the cost, but I still have out-of-pocket expenses that are draining my savings rapidly. I've started a GoFundMe, which was humiliating to create but necessary for survival at this point. To add insult to injury, I received a letter from my former health insurance company claiming I owe them $3,200 for overpayment on my last round of medication. Apparently, they processed the claim after my termination date by mistake and now want the money back. My lawyer is dealing with this, but it's another layer of stress I didn't need. 4. I've had 12 interviews so far with no offers. 2 potential employers explicitly told me they called my former company and received concerning feedback about my reliability and attendance. Another interviewer asked if I had any medical conditions that might impact my ability to work late hours, a question that's completely illegal but impossible to prove in a he said, she said situation. I quote, VE started looking at remote work options, thinking they might be more accommodating for my condition. The problem is that most remote positions pay significantly less than what I was making, and many don't offer health insurance. I'm considering taking a customer service job just to have some income, but the hours would make it difficult to continue my job search for a position in my field. 5. The most unexpected consequence of all this has been the social isolation. Many of our mutual friends have chosen sides, and most have chosen Megan's. Her version of events, that she was just concerned about my health and I overreacted, seems more palatable to people than acknowledging that discrimination happened. One friend actually told me, well, maybe the company made the right call if you couldn't handle the stress. When I pointed out that I was never given the chance to prove I could handle it, she shrugged and said, companies have to make tough decisions. It's been eye-opening to see how many people are comfortable with disability discrimination when it's wrapped in the guise of concern. The worst part, Megan and Jake are now engaged. She posted a photo of her ring last week with the caption, "When you know, you know." Several of our college friends congratulated her, completely ignoring the fact that their relationship directly contributed to my current situation. One even commented, "You guys are perfect together." So happy Jake got that promotion so you could stop hiding your relationship. 6. I hate to admit this, but I've been struggling significantly with depression and anxiety. The combination of physical health concerns, financial stress, job uncertainty, and social betrayal has taken a massive toll on my mental well-being. I've started having panic attacks, something I've never experienced before, and I can't afford therapy because, you guessed it, no insurance. The cruel irony is that stress exacerbates MS symptoms, so my health has actually deteriorated since all this began. I'm experiencing more fatigue and muscle weakness than before, creating a vicious cycle where I'm physically less able to fight for my rights or find new employment. I quote am trying to stay positive, but it's getting harder every day. The injustice of it all is suffocating. Megan and Jake get to celebrate their engagement and his promotion while I'm selling my possessions to pay for medication and sleeping on my parents' couch at 32. Update 1 month later. It's been a month since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. The situation continues to be a roller coaster of small victories and devastating setbacks. 1. My lawyer has been in discussions with the company's legal team. They initially offered a settlement that included 1 month of severance pay, no admission of wrongdoing, a non-disclosure agreement preventing me from discussing the case, a non-disparagement clause, $5,000 for general damages. My lawyer rejected this offer as insultingly low, especially considering my medical expenses and the clear evidence of discrimination. He countered with a more reasonable demand, and we're waiting for their response. The problem is that I'm running out of time and money, which weakens our negotiating position. The company knows this and seems to be deliberately dragging things out. 2. After 27 job interviews and no offers, I finally have some potential good news. A small digital marketing agency has offered me a contract position. It's not ideal. The pay is about 40% less than my former salary, there are no benefits, and it's only guaranteed for 6 months. But at this point, I need something to stop the financial bleeding. The owner knows about my MS, I decided to be upfront about it after what happened before, and seems understanding, but I can tell he's hesitant. He made a point of mentioning that the contract could be terminated if performance issues arise. It's not the security I need, but it's something. 3. Remember those new symptoms I mentioned in my first post? They've gotten worse. My neurologist is concerned about disease progression and wants me to switch to a more aggressive treatment plan. The new medication would cost over $8,500 per month without insurance. Completely impossible for me right now. I've applied for a clinical trial that would provide the medication for free, but there's a waiting list, and I won't know if I'm accepted for another 2 months. In the meantime, I'm trying to manage with my current treatment, but the doctor is concerned about potential permanent nerve damage if we don't address the progression soon. The stress of everything has triggered the worst flare-up I've had in years. Last week, I lost partial vision in my right eye for 3 days. It was terrifying, and it's still not completely back to normal. This is a known MS symptom called optic neuritis, but it had never happened to me before. 4. The Megan and Jake saga. Somehow, this continues to get more twisted. Jake was featured in an industry magazine last week, profiled as a rising star in marketing. The article mentioned his innovative restructuring of the department and how he wasn't afraid to make tough decisions for efficiency. Reading it made me physically ill. As for Megan, she's been promoted to senior HR manager. Let that sink in. The person who violated medical privacy and facilitated discrimination has been promoted within the Human Resources Department. According to Rachel, who still keeps me updated, Megan is now in charge of employee wellness initiatives. Their engagement party photos are all over social media. Several of our former mutual friends attended, including people who know exactly what they did to me. The theme of the party, fortune favors the bold. I wish I was making this up. 5. My savings are completely depleted. I've sold almost everything of value that I own. My parents are helping as much as they can, but they're dipping into their retirement funds, which fills me with guilt. The GoFundMe has raised about $3,800, which covered 1 month of medical expenses, but not much else. I've applied for disability benefits, but the process is notoriously slow and difficult. The initial application was denied. Apparently, I'm not disabled enough because I can still work sometimes, so now we're appealing. My lawyer says this could take 12 months to resolve. Meanwhile, collections agencies are calling daily about the medical bills I can't pay. My credit score has plummeted, which will make it even harder to get back on my feet if this nightmare eventually ends. 6. Someone, I strongly suspect Megan, has been sharing details about my situation in industry social media groups, but with a twisted narrative. Posts have appeared in marketing professional groups about entitled employees who blame discrimination when they don't get their way and why companies are right to consider health issues in promotion decisions. The posts don't mention me by name, but they include enough specific details that anyone from my former company would know exactly who they're referencing. This has made my job search even more difficult, as these groups are typically where recruiters find candidates in our industry. I've had to remove myself from most professional networking platforms just to protect what's left of my reputation. 7. Remember my sister who flew in to support me? Even she's starting to show signs of compassion fatigue. Last week, she suggested that maybe I should just move on and stop fighting a losing battle. When I pointed out that moving on doesn't solve my health insurance crisis or the fact that my career has been destroyed by discrimination, she got defensive and said I was choosing to be a victim. Coming from the person who witnessed Megan's confession firsthand, this felt like yet another betrayal. I understand that everyone has their own problems, but it's devastating to feel like even my closest family members are starting to see me as a burden. The most surreal part is watching life go on normally for everyone else, while mine remains in shambles. My former company just announced record profits for the quarter. Jake was quoted in the press release talking about how his creative leadership contributed to their success. Megan posts daily about her wedding planning and living her best life. Meanwhile, I'm rationing medication, fighting with insurance companies, and trying to figure out how to afford groceries this week. Final update, 6 months later. It's been half a year since this nightmare began, and I think it's time for a final update on my situation. A lot has changed, though not always in the ways I hoped. 1. After months of negotiations, we finally reached a settlement with my former company. It wasn't the victory I'd dreamed of, but it was something. 3 months of severance pay, retroactive. A neutral reference agreement. $35,000 in damages, of which my lawyer took 33%. Coverage for some of my medical expenses during the gap period. No admission of wrongdoing. The settlement came with strict non-disclosure and non-disparagement clauses, which is why I'm being careful about how I phrase things. Basically, I can't specifically name the company or individuals involved, and I can't publicly accuse them of discrimination. This post is actually pushing the boundaries, but I needed closure. Was it enough? Not really. Not for what I lost. But after 6 months of fighting with mounting medical bills and no stable income, I had to accept it. My lawyer explained that while we had a strong case, litigation could have taken years with no guaranteed outcome. I simply couldn't wait that long. 2. The contract position I mentioned in my last update didn't work out. The owner kept reducing my hours until I was barely making enough to cover gas for the commute. It became clear he'd only hired me because he felt sorry for me, not because he valued my skills. After 3 more months of job hunting, I finally found a position at a small non-profit. The pay is about 30% less than what I was making before, and the health insurance isn't great, but it's stable employment with people who know about my condition up front and still chose to hire me. I've been there for 2 months now, and so far, they've been understanding about my medical appointments. The hardest part was accepting that my career trajectory has been permanently altered. I was on track to become a creative director at a major agency. Now, I'm essentially starting over in a completely different sector with lower pay and less prestige. I'm trying to be grateful for the stability, but it's difficult not to mourn the career I lost. 3. After 3 months on the waiting list, I was accepted into the clinical trial for the new medication. It's been helpful. My symptoms have stabilized, and I haven't had another episode of optic neuritis. The downside is that the trial requires monthly visits to a research hospital 3 hours away, which means taking time off work regularly. My new insurance covers my basic medication, but with a $950 monthly copay that strains my already tight budget. I've applied for a supplemental coverage program, but there's a waiting list for that too. The most frustrating part is knowing that none of this would be an issue if I still had my original job in insurance. Every injection, every pill, every doctor's appointment is a reminder of what was taken from me. 4. Through mutual acquaintances, I've heard that Megan and Jake got married in a lavish ceremony last month. Jake has been promoted again. He's now Executive Creative Director. Megan is still running the Employee Wellness Program, which apparently includes seminars on maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. The irony would be comical if it weren't so painful. Several of our former mutual friends attended their wedding, including people who initially supported me. It seems that success and prosperity are more attractive than principles to many people. Each social media post from their honeymoon in Bali feels like salt in an open wound. I've blocked them on all platforms, but screenshots still find their way to me through well-meaning, or perhaps not so well-meaning, acquaintances. Jake recently won an industry award for the campaign I conceptualized. In his acceptance speech, he talked about how sometimes you have to make difficult personnel decisions to achieve creative excellence. No one in the audience knew he was referring to firing the person who actually created the award-winning work. 5. The settlement money, after legal fees, helped me pay off the most pressing medical debts and gave me a small cushion. But the reality is that I'm now making significantly less while my expenses, particularly medical, are higher. I'm financially stable for the moment, but with no savings and limited career growth potential in my new field. I quote, I'll be paying off medical bills for years. My credit is damaged enough that buying a home, something I was planning to do this year in my previous life, now seems like a distant dream. At 32, I'm financially worse off than I was at 25, despite working harder and being more skilled. 6. This is perhaps the most enduring impact of everything that happened. I've developed trust issues that affect every relationship in my life. I've lost friends, strained family relationships, and found myself hesitant to form new connections. When your best friend of over a decade betrays you so fundamentally, it makes you question your judgment about everyone. I've been diagnosed with PTSD related to the workplace discrimination and betrayal. I have nightmares about being fired, about becoming homeless, about being too sick to work. I flinch when I receive emails from HR at my new job. I panic when my manager asks for a quick chat. This psychological impact may actually outlast the financial and career consequences. I recently started therapy through a sliding scale community program. It's helping, but healing from this kind of betrayal and injustice is a long process. 7. Perhaps the most bitter realization through all of this has been understanding how broken our systems are. The fact that losing a job can mean losing access to life-sustaining medication is barbaric. The ease with which employers can discriminate against people with disabilities despite existing laws is disheartening. I did everything right. I got an education, worked hard, excelled at my job, and was careful about managing my health condition. And yet, one person's betrayal combined with systemic failures around healthcare and employment protections nearly destroyed my life. What's most disturbing is how many people consider this normal or acceptable. How many friends and acquaintances suggested I should have hidden my condition better, or that the company was just making a business decision, or that Megan was just being honest by disclosing my private medical information. The normalization of discrimination is perhaps more painful than the discrimination itself. If there's anything positive that's come from this experience, it's a new sense of purpose. I've started volunteering with disability advocacy organisations, sharing my story, within the bounds of my settlement agreement, to help others understand the real-world impacts of discrimination. I've connected with a community of people with invisible disabilities who face similar challenges. My life now is unrecognisable compared to what it was a year ago. I'm in a different city, different industry, different financial situation, with different friends and a different outlook on life. Some changes have been positive. I've discovered who my true friends are, and I'm less materialistic than I used to be. But I can't pretend this was a blessing in disguise or that I'm stronger for having gone through it. The truth is, what happened to me was profoundly unjust, and no amount of personal growth or perspective shift can erase that fact. Megan and Jake prospered through betrayal and discrimination, while I lost almost everything. There's no cosmic balancing of scales, no karmic retribution, no satisfying conclusion where everyone gets what they deserve. And that's perhaps the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes injustice simply remains unjust. The villains get their happy ending, and the victims are left to rebuild from the wreckage without any guarantee of success. To everyone who has followed my story and offered support, thank you. Knowing that strangers on the internet understood and validated my experience when many in my real life didn't has been a lifeline during the darkest moments. For anyone facing workplace discrimination or betrayal by someone you trusted, I wish I had more hopeful advice to offer. All I can say is document everything, know your rights, and understand that the path to justice is longer and more difficult than it should be. Take care of your health, mental and physical, above all else. And find community with others who understand, because solidarity might be the only genuine comfort available when systems fail.
Holy shit, this is textbook discrimination. I'm an employment attorney and you have a slam dunk ADD case here. Document everything, texts, emails, performance reviews. The fact that they laid you off right after promoting someone else who knew about your condition is a giant red flag. The company is trying to weigh you out because they know you're desperate. Don't settle for pennies. PM me if you want some free advice.
As someone with an invisible disability who's been discriminated against at work, this breaks my heart and makes my blood boil at the same time. The way our society treats chronically ill people is absolutely barbaric. You could do everything right and still get screwed over because of something you can't control. I wish I could say it gets better, but in my experience, it rarely does. The system is designed to protect companies, not sick people.
Unpopular opinion, but maybe your company made the right call. Managing a team is extremely stressful, and if you have a condition that gets worse with stress, they might have actually been looking out for you and the company's best interest. Just playing devil's advocate here.
MS patient here. The medication situation is all too familiar. I lost my insurance for 3 months and had to stop Ocrevus. Had a major relapse that put me in a wheelchair for 6 weeks. These companies and these friends have no idea the physical harm they're causing when they pull this shit. The fact that your friend felt entitled to share your medical information makes me sick. You don't just lose a job with MS, you risk permanent disability progression. I hope your lawyer takes them to the cleaners.
I'd like to offer a slightly different perspective here. While what Megan did was absolutely wrong and a violation of your privacy, is it possible she genuinely thought she was looking out for you? MS is a serious condition, and increased stress can trigger flare-ups. Maybe in her misguided way, she thought she was protecting you from a job that would make your condition worse. Not excusing what she did at all, just wondering if there's any chance this wasn't pure malice.
Am I the only one who thinks OP might be leaving some things out of this story? It feels a bit one-sided. Companies don't usually fire top performers for no reason, and friends don't usually betray each other out of nowhere. Just saying, there might be more to this than we're hearing.
The story makes me feel physically ill. The fact that Megan not only betrayed you, but is now thriving in her career while you suffer, is everything that's wrong with corporate America. The bad guys win. The vulnerable get crushed and nobody cares. Your friends showing their true colors is just the cherry on top of this shit sundae. I don't have any advice, just solidarity. This country is broken beyond repair.
Please contact your state's disability rights organization ASAP. They often have legal teams that will take cases like yours, pro bono or reduced cost. Also contact the National MS Society. They have emergency funds for situations exactly like yours. Don't give up on the EEOC complaint, but know that it can take years. Focus on getting stable medication access first. MS progression waits for no one.
I work in HR, and what Megan did is so beyond unethical, I can't even begin to express it. Medical information is sacred in our field. She shouldn't just be fired, she should be blacklisted from ever working in HR again. The company settlement offer is insultingly low, by the way. Keep fighting.
Praying for you. God never gives us more than we can handle. This is a season of trial, but just have faith that something better is waiting for you. Maybe this was a blessing in disguise to lead you to a workplace where you'll be truly valued.
The part about your sister experiencing compassion fatigue hit me hard. I've been chronically ill for years, and have watched every relationship in my life slowly deteriorate because people get tired of hearing about your problems. They want the inspiring sick person who overcomes everything, not the reality of someone struggling day after day with no happy ending in sight. It's the loneliness that will break you in the end.
Okay, I'll be the one to say it. You should absolutely name and shame this company. Yes, I know you signed an NDA, but create an anonymous account and let everyone know which marketing agency this is so people can avoid working there. Companies get away with this because victims stay silent. Break the cycle.
The health insurance system in this country is actual murder. Tying healthcare to employment is a form of modern slavery. You can't leave bad jobs, you can't take risks, you can't start your own business, all because you might die without the almighty insurance. And if you get sick enough not to work, well, fuck you, I guess. This isn't a country, it's a hostage situation.
Employment lawyer here. A few things to note. 1, your settlement isn't great, but it's actually not terrible given the circumstances. 2, NDAs don't actually prevent you from filing with EEOC or discussing illegal discrimination in general. 3, that neutral reference agreement, they're almost certainly violating it. Record all your calls with potential employers if one party consent is legal in your state. 4, your friend Megan committed a serious HIPAA violation. If she works for a covered entity, you can separately report her. 5, you can likely get much better health care on the ACA marketplace than you think. PM me and I can help you navigate it.
This is exactly why we need universal health care in this country. Notice how much leverage employers have over employees simply because they control access to medicine? It's by design. Your situation is awful, but sadly not unique. Millions of Americans are one diagnosis away from complete ruin.
The PTSD you're experiencing is a normal response to severe betrayal trauma and medical trauma combined. Your brain is trying to protect you from future threats. Please, don't judge yourself for these reactions. Looking into AMDR therapy specifically, it's very effective for this type of trauma, and some clinics offer it on sliding scales. Healing is possible even if justice isn't.
I've been around a long time and seen countless workplace dramas unfold. Here's what I predict will happen. Jake will eventually fail upward to a position he can't handle. The department will suffer, and eventually the company will quietly realize their mistake. Megan's career will be fine until someone else falls victim to her loose lips and self-serving behavior. Their relationship probably won't last because it's built on mutual opportunism. None of this helps you now, of course, but these types rarely enjoy long-term success. Small comfort, I know.
You know what's crazy about this? I'm pretty sure I know exactly which company you're talking about. A friend of mine works there and mentioned a situation exactly like this. If it's the same place, Jake is apparently running the department into the ground, and 3 more people have quit since you left. Karma works slowly, but it does work.
As someone who's been disabled for 15 years, I need to say this. Your story is devastating, but not unusual. The way our society treats disabled people is unconscionable. The medical system, employment system, disability benefit system, they're all designed to break you down until you give up. Don't give up. Join advocacy groups, connect with the disability community, find your people who understand what you're going through. You can't fight this alone. No one can.
This reads like a perfect case study in how corporate capitalism crushes vulnerable people. Worker has value until they don't, then they're discarded. Health is a privilege for those who can afford it. Ethics and morality are luxuries. The only winning move is to burn the whole system down and start over.